The power of data is undeniable, and unharnessed, it's nothing but chaos.
The amount of data was crazy.
Can I trust it?
You will waste money.
Held together with duct tape.
Doomed to failure.
This season, we're solving problems in real time to reveal the art of the possible, making data your ally, using it to lead with confidence and clarity, helping communities and people thrive. This is Data-Driven Leadership, a show by Resultant. Today, we're joined by Kelly Vega, Program Director at VML and the genius behind Not the Worst PM on social media. She has over a decade of experience wrangling complex digital projects, keeping teams aligned, and somehow surviving the chaos of deadlines, stakeholders, and the occasional impossible request. She has worked for some major brands that if I said them out loud, you would definitely recognize them. I tripped over Kelly's account, Not the Worst PM, on Instagram, and I was immediately taken with how well she can tell a story that innately gets at the value prospect of a project manager. If you are a project manager, you work with a project manager, or you might need a project manager, this episode is for you. It takes the PM and helps everyone here understand the strategic role project managers play at managing your assets, which is either your resources, your applications, your time, your money. And I think she really helps clarify, and she's very poignant in her storytelling, just exactly how important that is. She also addresses the transitions that we don't always talk about or have the data around about what makes a project manager successful in one area and how that might not be setting them up for success in this other area. Whether you are a PM or work with one, this episode is for you. And there are a couple really interesting stories that she's telling in this episode and then in future areas in her account. So you should make sure you follow her. Let's get into it. Kelly, welcome.
Thank you. I am so happy to be here, Jess.
I don't think people understand. This one was like, I tripped over your Not the Worst PM account on Instagram.
Yeah.
I watched so this tells you I was deep scrolling because I saw something that was funny, but your iMovie, what is it?
Yes. iMovie.
That story came up and I was like, this is
MoviePass.
It was so well done. And so I kind of like fell into this realization that in this podcast, we talk about data all the time. We've never actually paused to be like, let's talk about the value proposition of a good project manager. Never. Mm-hmm. We've never done it. And I was like, if we're going to do it, we got to do it with Kelly.
Yes. Oh, I am honored. Yes. Oh, those stories have been so much fun to make.
Seriously, if people haven't watched it, and we'll put a link to your Not the Worst PM on our show notes so people can access it really quickly. How did that all start? Like, you're creating this content that is really, it's high quality. And I can tell it takes some time to put it together. Like, how did that all begin?
My TikTok started in 2021, I believe is when I started posting. And so working from home, right, had been doing so since 2020 with a lot of others. And I was on TikTok myself because of my teenage girls. And I'm like, okay, what's this about? And I loved the lip sync voiceover, snit bits. And so many times I'd hear those and I'd be like, this could be corporate. Like this could be applicable to a corporate or PM thing. So I started making some. And it wasn't until I think almost a year later in 2022 that somewhere in the spring, my Michael Scott voiceover for sending one email and, something like, I don't even know what the voiceover was, but it went viral. And that was the first one that like hit 1 million and had all this engagement and a bunch, for some reason, of like 20 brands commented on it. And I was like, oh, okay. And then of course the usual, like once you have something viral, then it's like another wave of a lull, whatever. But I don't even know when I hit, like 10K. It was somewhere in that year. And it's really most of what I was putting out then was the lip syncs, something funny about being corporate, working from home and being a PM and being in the tech space. And then once I hit unemployment though, now fast forward another year, and I had a lot more downtime. And that was unemployment by choice. I stepped away from that role and wanted to reassess where I was going. So I doubled up my PM presence, or Not the Worst PM presence, to be both talking about a little bit my unemployment journey and through humor, as always, right?
Yep,
Coping mechanism or otherwise, for better or worse. And then doubled with that, I was like, I want to make this longer form content. I have to use my brain. And organically, comments were sprinkled throughout my videos, but like, have you ever heard about this or this? And I simply took from comments and ran with it. And the first one was about, it was something related to a secret file on the Pentagon share drive that was leaked, right?
Yeah.
Allegedly. And so, and that had all this information that, someone who wasn't supposed to see it saw it. And that one was like, I just came up with that, did the story. And then I ran with it with other examples that commented onto it. And it became this like part, I think 10 series that I did over my unemployment. And now I haven't had as much time to carve out, but with the engagement and reactions I've gotten, I got to get back into that.
Yes, you do.
I even have a couple of examples today if we get to it.
Well, and I was going to say, some of it gets really complicated because I imagine you're like, okay, this is one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. I imagine that like your daily life is input into things that you could probably jest about. But does it get tricky where you're like, I need to bury that for 6 months or someone's going to know that I'm jesting about literally the meeting we had yesterday?
Right, exactly. I mean, definitely. I think that it's been a balance of like, I have this humor as an outlet and a creative outlet, no less, but also like there's very much a 40-hour-a-week job that I'm doing. And I think if anything, the busier I am at work and in more challenges, I mean, I always have content coming to my head. I mean, if I hear an audio, it's something within the last week that literally just happened, may have brought me to tears, mind you. And then I'm turning around and being able to like, be like, okay, but like, how funny is this? Because at the end of the day, we're humans. And we're just like doing our best. And that's really where I found my niche with Not the Worst PM was maybe making it more human and being like, we're all a little nervous in this crazy wild, wild west of digital anything, tech. And, old PM practices have been like shoehorned into digital and we've had to make it what we have.
Right. Really, I think it's genius content because one of the things that comes through for me is in the humor of your content, it is very clear that you understand what the value of a PM is if they're well trained and equipped with the right tools and resources without you ever having to prove it or say it. You demonstrate it through kind of some of your content. When I first started in the PM world, I had this experience where I had a leader at the company I was working for at the time who quite literally referred to their technologists in calls with all of these people as value add resources. And they referred to the PMs as non-value add resources.
Oh,
and I remember this.
I
know. I remember this
getting worse.
It keeps getting worse. There is a night where I stood between that leader and the door. And I said, you are not allowed to go home to your family until you promise me that you will never do that again. Because that tells me innately, that says so much more about you than it does about our PM team. But like it was the inception of me starting to appreciate and process what does it look like to be a high value PM? Because we probably all have horror stories about people who don't understand really like the impact. And so I want to hear your perspective on when did that switch flip for you? Or do you have a story now about like, this is a great example of a value added PM or somebody who's kind of missing it? Do you know what I mean?
Gosh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I think I was blessed with an opportunity because I was in publicity when I was first approached in 2013 to be the first PM at this agency. They had people that were doing PM jobs, but they split two people, those two roles into like solutions analysts, BA more or less, and PMs. And both of them chose the solution analyst route and they needed to have someone start being the PM. And I didn't know what the word scope meant. But my friend who was the head of like backend dev there was like, she manages publicity for like however many cities across the US for Sesame Street Live. Like, I'm pretty sure she can just try to figure out how to do that here. And I'm like, huh? And it worked out after that. But my point to answering your question was I was given the opportunity with no straight PM. This is what I do. But my friend was like, well, she's doing things that are scope, budget, and timeline over here. Now, when I was there and I ended up, when I left, I believe I had a team of, 5 PMs and 2 interns. We had like really built out the PM team there. And one of those PMs, one of my really most senior operating PMs, you could say, but she had the most junior experience, was someone who came from real estate. And she had been looking for something for months, I believe it was. And I don't remember if I knew her through her connections, but I met with her for coffee and I just had to talk to her and see how she thought about things, see how she strategized with even her job search, but also how she strategized her other job. And I'm like, she's got the chops. And she ended up being, I worked with her at another place somewhere else, and now we are still connected. And I think those are examples where you have someone who understands how to efficiently address a challenge that's in front of them without getting in too much of the minutia of process, while also adhering to process enough. I don't know. It's a balance, but I think my radar for that, I'd like to say it's pretty high. And that's why I've noticed when like maybe the good ones don't get recognized or the not so good ones push forward, and it's like, hang on here, but why? And those reasons can vary.
So I have had this experience too, where I have met people who have done this for 25 years. They are PMBOK certified. They have 1,000 certifications, and they are really good at checking the box in the process, and the outcomes aren't good. Like we really struggle. Have you experienced that too?
Definitely. And it
Why
might
is
be
that?
like, for an example, someone who's super structured, checks all the boxes, but maybe they're on a program or a client who's like, hey, we're agile. We've got 15 projects going at once, and I want this to be on a Kanban board or a sprint calendar. And they're like, well, hang on a second. I'm in this waterfall structure from 4 years over here. And not that you would hire them into that position, but sometimes at an agency, you're handed something and you're like, okay, this client is expecting this. Now that person might be really great on something that's like highly regulated, slower moving, but super like visible. And if they are really able to check those boxes, let's put you on a SOC 2 certification initiative. Find what works for that person. Don't put them on the client that has 6 marketing tech campaigns going at once and needs like constant changes. And they will not play well there.
Well, the other sort of experience that I feel like I've struggled with is when I look at PMs who are running projects, and I realize like, it's not like I need everybody to know what a critical path is or what a work breakdown structure is. Like all of these terms, I get it. They're very PME. To your point about like raw talent who just understands how to achieve a goal. There's a little bit of like, I use the phrase PMs who read you the news and PMs who write the news. And like, we want PMs who drive the project towards the right outcomes. They don't just manage what we all said to a cliff that we all fall off of. And I do think like the industry is a mixed bag of those two things.
Big time. In tech and digital, I feel like the transactional PM is less applicable because, I mean, unless you have whether it be a campaign or just a maintenance site or something that has kind of a churn of regular stuff that goes by a process, doesn't have much strategy, or it's running how it's running. But like, you don't find that as much. People want the ideas and the strategies to go alongside the maintenance that they're doing or what have you. So I feel like more so I'm seeing PMs that are successful have a strategic mindset, not even background, but just mindset. You don't have to turn into a salesperson. You don't have to turn into a strategist, but hopefully you're kind of thinking like that because they want that. Because when you manage all the stuff or even recap a meeting, you'll see the difference if someone's thinking strategically in that recap or if they're just copy and pasting the transcription recap, you know?
Okay, so here's my question for you. Nature or nurture? Can we coach people from one to the other? Or do you think people are just innately wired one way?
I do think that nature equals whatever previous PM experience they had, if they've had it.
Okay.
So like, if they're coming in fresh, I do think that nurture can go such a long way if they have the skill sets, like largely, you know, but if that nature of like even 2 years of a PM experience, that could look pretty rough for someone if they were in an agency or if they were even in-house where a PM is seen either as a pencil pusher, a note taker, or maybe like strategist, content entry person, blah, blah, blah. And they might be like, ooh, jaded or whatever, that it's going to take more nurture to get them out of it. But again, it depends on the personality. If they're like, no, I'm willing to adhere to a process that works and I feel respected in and there's accountability, I definitely think that nurture is like 90% of it.
That is so helpful because it gives me hope that the answer can be both, but maybe the road is longer or more arduous if you're not given, you know, because I do think also size of projects and portfolios. If you have some giant portfolio where somebody at the top is dictating the scope and the strategy and you're not having to do that, you kind of are used to just executing with what you've been given. You're not taught to actually drive the train and see when we need to turn left or right. And so then to your point, I think it's really helpful to hear for any PM to hear when you take on a new project, you should treat it like a new job. Like you need to shake off some of the stuff that you had before, shake off the assumptions or context, and look at the new opportunity and understand what are the new ways you're going to grow, what's the new experience you're going to get, and what's the stuff that you should pull forward because it's going to serve you there.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Yes. And notice what doesn't work. So you're not just, I think a PM, especially in today's just economy, right? Like they're like, give me the first job that's available. So if you have to do that, you have to do that. But like if you are in a larger agency where you have someone overseeing you and they're like, hey, are you thinking this? Are you thinking this? We have this down the pipeline. Be more mindful of like what didn't work. Like a plan that maybe is like a set number of hours a month. Maybe that's too mundane for you, or maybe it's too feeling like a crunch for you. You want something that's like a 2-3 year project. Not that everybody can choose or has the ability to choose, but like be in your next job. If you're looking for another job, I don't think I was as mindful because I would be prompted or someone would approach me and I'm like, hey, looks cool. Let's try it. And this was actually the last time I shifted on my own and was like, I'm just.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Right. That agency is pretty powerful, right? Okay. One of the things I want to ask you, do you have any net new, like exciting stories you're working on that you want to tell us?
I do. Yes. I do. I have 2 of them. I do because I'm motivated again and I want to get these out. So you get the sneak peek, we get to talk it through and I'm probably
so excited. Okay, let's do it. Okay.
So the first is it's about BBC, Digital Media Initiative, DMI. Okay. And I'm going to read a bit here because
do it.
But yeah, so 125 million, I think it was like 100 million pounds. So 125 million was lost to governance failures. They launched this initiative, the DMI, in 2008 to digitize and modernize its vast archives, which was about 15 plus million items, including TV and radio broadcasts, photos, sheet music, and even vintage tapes. No pressure. After 5 years and nearly 125 million US dollars, the project was scrapped in 2013, and a report by the PwC, which is the PricewaterhouseCoopers, they're one of like the big 4 audit and consulting firms. The issue wasn't tech, but governance. There wasn't steering board, weak reporting, and little accountability. And it remains one of the BBC's most expensive public project failures. And the sources I had, this is Guardian and BBC Trust, were the sources I got these. So the PwC found no executive steering group. They didn't challenge progress on cost, time, or quality. The reporting wasn't found. Finance committee relied on the CTO running the project. And we know what, an executive is an executive up here for a reason, not to manage the project down there. I think, bless them. Poor transparency. A 6-month gap existed between the red flags emerging. So 2011, there were red flags and the escalation to leadership didn't happen until 2012. Heck of a delay there. I think I mentioned in one of my recent videos that an old boss would tell me wine doesn't get better with age and neither does bad news. And the reporting lacked clarity on budget progress and delivery of benefits. They stress it wasn't sunk by tech impossibility, but poor management. Yeah, so all those archives, it was just 125 million. Attempted to move them, didn't work. What their current solution is today, I don't know. That's what I have to find out. Perhaps they're still recovering from that deficit.
This is like, this is a dream. I'm so excited to talk about this because I'm like, isn't it crazy for people to understand what good status reporting can do?
It's underestimated. Yes. And I think it's seen as a mundane thing, or it's seen as like, we all have to talk about what we all know. And it's like, no, we all have to talk about what we all know. We certainly do. And like, I'm big on like status report. I mean, you have your internal syncs, 15 minutes a day. You have your internal status that you're like, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay. All the cliff notes and whatnot. But then like your team status to the client and then your executive status. So you don't have their only involvement being escalations.
Right.
So they can know what's going on and defining like, hey, who's your stakeholder? If someone told me our CTO, I would be like, okay, if you're a company of 2, maybe, but I don't think they are. I'll have to confirm that piece too. Can't say the count, but I don't think BBC is 2.
I'm curious what you think about this. So one of the things I have noticed in project management, and maybe that was part of it too, was like, there are patterns that people bring to new projects that aren't the right cadence or types of patterns where I'm like, hey, I had somebody yesterday that was working on this project and getting ready to kick it off. And it's like building something brand new that their company's never had before. We had this great kickoff where they were like, hey, we really got to focus on like we cannot get overcomplicated. Like brilliant basics is what they said. We just got to get the value prop out the door. Something had happened, and I had one more meeting with them a week later, and suddenly here are our KPIs, and here are all these things, and here's the timeline that shows 9 different corresponding timelines happening at the exact. And I was like, you took advice from some leader that you shouldn't have taken. You should have told them to pound sand, because there are no KPIs on something that you're rolling out that's new, that has had 0 time. Like the KPI is we'll build the thing and then we'll decide what the KPIs are. And so there was this like, for the value proposition in that circumstance, sometimes it makes sense to build out a very thoughtful plan with KPIs. But in this circumstance, it was like, hey, the best CIO I ever worked with, he said, hey, stop with the chaos and the games. We are building a fence, and I want to know how many fence posts you put in this week. Do not color more than that. Did we do 3 and we planned on putting 3 in? Or did we plan on 3 and we put 7 in or 1 in? But like, do not overcomplicate it and confuse me with non-progress that looks like progress. Why is that so hard?
I know, it's funny because when I came on, like speaking of over-engineering, like a large migration project, and simply how it was thought was over-engineered because of I don't know how the mentality started, but they were going by discipline of this large migration across many clients. They were chunking it by discipline. So tech, strategy, IT, even for some things. And they had it kind of a waterfall. And I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm looking at all the subsections and I'm like, oh, they're all working on the same thing in these subsections. And I just kind of tilted it on its side, scrapped it obviously, but like, it was like, okay, here's all the sections of what you're working on. And each section has its timeline. And now we have these chunks of not disciplines, but by the phase of this migration that we're working in. And I think everyone was afraid to mix everybody's teams up. And I'm like, no, I will sit down with each of you for 1 hour a day if I have to get this. And it'll just be 1 hour for each of you. But for me, it'll be 40 hours of putting a Gantt together that now we can because it took that upfront time. But yeah, I think that to your point, like, whether it be from executives or other leads of disciplines, it becomes cardboard boxes on a castle. And you're like, back up, slow down, hang on.
Well, and even like I just coached somebody on this, and it felt so weird because I've not said it out. I've never said it out loud. I've never said it consciously. But they kind of had this moment where they're like, I've been reporting this risk for like 9 months. Like, why is everyone suddenly freaked out about it? And my coaching was like, hey, if you're ever running a project and there's a big fat, bomb that's going to go off, one of the like most important things you can do is just change the cadence, momentum, or tone in which you're talking. Like put a new slide in the deck. Literally pause for 30 seconds to say, we have an important topic that must be addressed.
Exactly. But and what's the impact?
Yes. If you normalize looking at a risk register and we talk about it as if it's fine, and because I'm like, there is real strategy behind, you've really said it on this call. There's real strategy behind being a great PM to say, okay, here's all the topics we typically talk about. I need to blow this one up this week. I need to spend more time on this one. Like, what's the why behind the time you're spending with your stakeholders, right?
Exactly. And I think, risk logs can become white noise pretty quickly if you're just making it a list of to-dos. Right. It's just going to look like a list of to-dos then. But it's an art. The PM is art of communication.
Yes, it is. Well, and it's like, one of the things I was going to ask you too is, I think part of why we've even gotten connected is the content you're producing about project management. It's cathartic. It's like you're like, people are feeling like, oh my gosh, yes, like somebody understands why this can feel like it's a drag or it's really hard. Yeah. Do you get that feedback from people when people are like, why they're connecting with your content? Okay.
Big time. I mean, from something as small as a comment of relatable on a video it's something stressful, right? To someone sending like a paragraph, even in a comment or a DM, like, hey, I came across your page. I'm here for this niche of like tech craziness, PM craziness, or they'll tell a story. And I'm like, that has been unexpected that I don't know why I didn't realize with having Not the Worst PM is with this following. It's not just a following of people who think I'm funny or just like my stuff. It's a following of people who do the same crap and feel the same way and are on the other side laughing with me about it or inspired with me about it. Like I will sprinkle in sometimes, I've been doing new like PM musings where I'm just answering some questions, but I didn't expect how much people did feel like me. I did feel like I was the only one with imposter syndrome or the only one who felt like I was faking it part of the time to just like get through something and then learning it later. But there's a bunch of us who are pretty scrappy in the best way.
Right. When you talked about kind of highly federated entities or highly like fast, agile, fail fast, part of me is like, I also think, and I don't know if you've done content about this, but one of the things I needed coaching on when I first started is I tend to PM technical projects. So app dev, science, engineering, stuff I don't do. I don't know how to do it. This moment when I knew I arrived, where I stopped gaslighting myself, because I was constantly gaslit. I was 23, female, running teams that were much more mature than me, much more experienced than me, and didn't always love that. And I had a hard time because sometimes I was trying to understand their estimates or understand how it was going. And they would be really cagey, or they would talk like it's like they talk right above my capabilities so that I couldn't follow them. And I had a really great mentor who was like, hey, you are smart. Stop thinking you aren't. And if they can't explain it in a way that makes sense, that's on them. And you ask them to try again. And it was really helpful for me. And I had this like really momentous moment in my career where I had a dev I was working with, and I was like going through his estimates. And I was like, I just don't understand what this one thing is. What is this thing? And he smiled at me and he was like, I made it up. So we had a week of buffer. It's not a real thing. And we had immediately our whole relationship changed. It was like respect that I could call out what was not making sense. But I feel like that advice of you do have to get into it. You have to get into whatever the thing you're PMing is and understand it effectively. You cannot sit above it and dictate timelines if you don't know what the things are, right?
It is so true. Like you do not need to understand how to do it, but you need to understand how to explain it. And that's what I'll tell devs is like, you prefer I explain this or you? and more or less that'll get them on board. And it's like, I promise you can ramble to me. I'll have the transcription on and then I will leave you on your merry way for the next 3 days. Just like explain this thing to me so I can go have this battle for those 3 days while you don't have to. Big time. And I think that caginess you mentioned, I have come to believe that from, as I mentioned before, the traditional, more waterfall approach, traditional project management, then being applied to the Wild West of digital and tech project management, people felt that in the worst way of like, what, this doesn't make sense with how we code, how we release, how we fill in the blank with anything technical. And so PMs were then forced, now we have like agile and we have all these methodologies and certifications, which is wonderful, but we're still feeling a little bit of that. It's gotten better in my experience, but I don't know if that's because of who now, like I'm coming in as a program director, maybe I want to believe that the caginess is going away because they being tech folks are seeing tech PMs putting effort toward understanding the trade and adhering as best we can and as most efficiently we can to manage that trade. That was long-winded. I hope it made sense.
No, it does make sense. And I think it gives me hope because I think you're right. Like we also only have our vantage points. And like I've had some technical people who love to design. They don't want to just be given requirements and told to dev. They want to play on the left side of it so that they can own it. And I have some that are like, I want to leave my headphones in, give me the requirements and let me dev. That's all I want. And so even just figuring out, it's not just the scope and the content, it's also the people. Like, who are you leading and how do you make sure you're leading them in the ways that they want to be led? And also like you understand what their aptitudes and attitudes and you're setting them up for success because every new project is usually new people. And I feel like that can be challenging, right?
Yes. I came on a team and there was a team offshore and then a team onshore and we had one operating tech lead and it was fine, but it could be better. And I noticed that. And I talked to, and this is the importance, is that sometimes PMs might think, okay, you're this role, you're this role, you're this role. And it's like, well, hang on. And at least in my case, there's other things at play. So I'm talking to this person's manager, like, hey, I see an opportunity for both tech leads having like for here near shore and for offshore. And like, is that okay? You have to think about politics too, right? That you might not be aware of. Like, I don't want to make anyone else step on anyone's toes. Like, is this appropriate? Does this person want this? And they're like, and both the consensus was yes. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to talk to those people next. And now it's like, And I always have those two tech leads and they're both full-time on the project. So it's like, however I split their time, it's up to me. And if their managers agree and it's so, and like, I think PMs underestimate maybe their ability to recognize those appropriate roles. Like, actually, what do you need for this client with these roles? Because it's more than just tech, creative, strategy, PM, BA.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I think what you're getting at too, that I think is really important is if there's one thing I want for all PMs is if they could appreciate the actual level of leadership that they are responsible for. Like, this is employee engagement. It is client experience. It is delivery. Like, you are literally leading a little micro company. And there's a lot of weight on that, but it's also really cool that you get to do that. And I can even tell, like, it's so interesting to hear your journey because your passion for this has maintained regardless of you stepping back or stepping away. So like, it's just interesting to me that obviously you are really passionate about this career. Is that like, has that always been there? Okay.
Yes. I mean, once I started at that first company and then I was PM director when I stepped away. And actually that was a different time that I didn't get approached, but I did step away because I was like, I feel like big fish in a small pond. And I was only 4 years old at that point of being a PM. And so I'm like, so I actually went after a tech PM position. I got turned down and I ended up getting hired months later as their second tech PM that ended up being the lead tech PM, which was like very fulfilling. At first, it was that imposter syndrome, right? And then it was like, no, you do have this. And I was setting the precedence of what requirements documentation needed to look like, because that was more of a content entry, also BA, writing requirements, also PM and QA. So that was one of those. So that was in a learning space. We had a proprietary learning tool. And once I felt like, okay, now I'm writing requirements, I kind of want to be back at a program level because I got to be on some bigger like L'Oreal and things like that. And that was cool. And that was a lot of traveling. But then I kind of wanted something downtown. And I had someone reach out, wanted this big migration project, came in as, it was funny, an executive producer, which that was just the name of their like program director. And I was like, I don't care. I've never cared what people call me. They've since changed that, but I was there. And then program director was my next, after executive producer, my next role. My point is I was being on these very different types of projects. Been in pharma and I've been in the tactical e-commerce space, firearms e-commerce. That was a little short stint. So I feel like every time I've jumped to something, it's for a new challenge because I'm like, but I've always had a team, even if just one, that I've been able to mentor or have report to me. And that's always been a big part of my passion.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you too, so you mentioned that you have a team, you enjoy that. Can you tell, how do you walk into a company, because you've had a lot of these experiences, how do you quickly assess if the PMs are set up for success? Like, can you quickly tell if somebody is over their skis?
Yeah.
You can.
My first question, if I'm inheriting a team, is what one-on-ones exist and how often? And not just as like, hey, whatever. And what reporting does or doesn't exist. Because if reporting doesn't exist, someone's not keeping them accountable to have that exist. If it's like the tertiary reporting, and I shouldn't even call it tertiary, but it's the stuff that the project team otherwise might not know is going on or not, right? Truly, and that can be budget reporting and whatever. So if that is not in place, also you see how they are, like how they talk about the project. If they're coming out like it's stressful, it's this, they aren't doing this, they aren't doing this. If it's whether it's kind of like the victim type card or like the blaming or what it is, you can tell. And it's not like they're a bad person, but you're like, oh, like you're feeling some sort of way after a pattern of this going on. And it's usually pretty quick to get to the bottom of it. It's usually communication.
Oh my gosh. Sorry. What's fascinating to me about what you're saying is this is why I like talking about this. The data-driven leader, nothing you just said is, well, I look at their EAC. I look at their earned value metric. Like those things are fine. But like there is this human element of, is the PM nervous and are they high at energy, either excited or nervous in one way or another, which would it's like, is this about to go live or is this the middle of the project and for some reason you're up here? That's interesting. Are they super leaning back and you're like, do you understand what's happening literally this week? Yes or no?
Right.
So,
right. And sometimes, yeah.
But it's interesting to me because it's that data is not in a source system somewhere. Your source system is your people. And so there's this sense of, even like for me, it's like I will try to meet with some of the team. Like I want to join your internal status updates and see how they're going. If you have that cadence, I'm going to see what's on the agenda, what's not on the agenda. What are we not talking about that we should? What are we talking? So it's just like, I think as people are thinking about how they deploy PMs, I think making sure entities acknowledge the actual portfolio of revenue that person is holding in their hands. Like, is that the right amount and the right level for that person's skills and abilities? I think digging deep on how is the project going? Is it on time? Is it not? Are there major risks? Like, there's just a few questions we can ask. But then to your point, I just think some of it is like, PM, how are you feeling about it? Are you engaged? Are you defensive? Like, those are really important insights into the portfolio that cannot be in your project management system of record.
Yeah, there's no tracker for that.
No.
Like, I mean, yeah, we can put red, yellow, green, but that's not going to suffice for me. Like,
right?
You know,
Yeah.
there's more to it than that. And I like to approach a PM with like, hey, we have this grace period because I'm new here. And if there's something that is like bubbling up that you're afraid to tell me, I get it. I promise I won't get mad. I've literally never yelled during a working hour in my life. Tell me what the issue is. And if I can help spin that as like, hey, I'm putting this process in place. We've caught this. This is what we're doing about it. Here's the impact. Next steps. It's done. Like, let me, because, you know, but I think it's not common to run into that because it has turned a lot of this space is dog eat dog, right? Improve yourself. And like, you know, to each their own, even more so kind of when we're working from home, right? It does feel a little more like to each your own. So it's really important to make sure a PM knows like they are heard and that they're not in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, you just have to hear what the issue is and we'll have a plan for it.
You said in a more psychologically safe way what I've been starting to explain, which is like, just no surprises. It's okay if there is bad news. It is not okay if you catch me off guard like the same week that it occurs. Like you do. And I think teaching PMs, it's not just about scope, schedule, budget. It is also about anticipating risk. And that piece is like, I need to know that you're getting better at forecasting where your project is going so you can start to get better at anticipating that and getting ahead of it. And I feel like there's some secret sauce there that's not in the PMBOK training. It's not in SAFE. Like they don't explain that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Ugh. Yeah, it's true.
What a breezy job. What a breezy job we have.
I know.
Right? Okay. So I know we didn't get to your other story. So that'll be an encouragement for listeners to go find your Instagram and follow you. Is that the best place for them to keep up with you?
So TikTok, I have like 20K followers there. IG, I just got to 10K-ish or something recently. I am more active on TikTok, but it's like, you could compare it to a dumping ground. Half of it's my dog. So like, do with that what you will. Instagram is where I put like the prime stuff. So
okay. All right. We'll put whatever links you want in the show notes so that people can follow you. I follow you on Instagram and I have deeply enjoyed it. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. It's been wonderful. I have absolutely loved talking and I could do it for 3.5 more years. Not hours.
Well, invitation to bring you back maybe in a future episode.
Yes, I would love that.
Cool. That sounds great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is so exciting.
Thank you. Okay. You are so welcome. Happy to be here. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you for listening. I'm your host, Jess Carter. And don't forget to follow The Data-Driven Leadership wherever you get your podcasts and rate and review, letting us know how these topics are transforming your business. We can't wait for you to join us on the next episode.